Welcome back to Module 3. This is the Advanced Facebook course, and we'll be going through the last and final module. So in Module 3, we'll be going through measuring and monitoring, and that's the biggest emphasis here. We want to go through split testing our campaigns and leveraging the most cost-effective content. We want to go through improving our audience actions, engagements, and conversions with the right kind of content. We want to go through UTM tracking and how to use a Google URL builder to be able to do this and be able to get this information to our Google Analytics. We want to understand the social performance and the data-driven insights that we can get through Google Analytics. And then from there, the final point is benchmarking our performance so we get continuous strategic improvements with our campaigns. So in Module 3, we want to make sure that we're creating the most effective Facebook advertising possible. So we really want to make sure that we're aware of what ads are working and what are not. Personally, through advertising, I find that about 80% of all my ads do not work the most effective way possible. So I actually pause about 80% of all my ads. This might sound like a scary factor or a scary kind of stat to you guys, but that's okay. This just means that we're continuously improving our ads, and all the old ones that have been paused, they've been rebuilt to get to certain improvements. Maybe it's the headline didn't have our location in it, and once we added the location, we saw better results. Maybe it's better imagery, so on and so forth. So Facebook has a great tool. It's called the split testing feature. This allows us to essentially split test our ads and find what works for us. So testing our ads is crucial, and a good practice is to use A/B testing. So this is sometimes referred to split testing, especially on Facebook's platform. They always call it split testing. What this means is we want to test one element at a time to see how well it performs. We want to test one element at a time because that allows us to get the results the fastest possible. Once we start creating 4 or 5 different factors that we're trying to test, it's just going to add on extra time and extra money to be able to find out what one's performing and what one's not. So for example, we might want to test 2 sets of ad copy just to see what one the audience finds is more relevant. Again, maybe we want to put the location into the first ad copy, whereas the second one we keep talking about the features and the benefits. And then we'll really get to see what happens. For the most part, we can create a hypothesis and theories on what's going to happen, but unless we test it, we won't be able to find out those results. Or even worse, we might actually go in and might, with our own mind and our own bias, decide what headline or what body, what kind of content works better for us. And we might actually make biased decisions based on what we think is best. This happens a lot, and it happens over and over again, I find, with clients and businesses. So we really want to test it to see what the performance and what the data shows us, not what we think. So remember that Facebook will automatically optimize images and ad performance towards whatever objective is performing the best, or sorry, whatever objective our campaigns are. So we want to make sure that we're factoring this into our testing. What this means is that if we have an objective of clicks, for instance, it's going to optimize towards what's going to be clicking the most. So if we are actually wanting the ads to get a lot of more engagement, likes, comments, and shares, we want to make sure that we have the engagement objective set first and not going for clicks. This will really skew our results and skew the data and the decisions we make afterwards. So we really want to make sure that we're leveraging this cost-effective content. We want to make sure that we're going into the platform, seeing what one's driving the best cost per click for us, or the highest CTR, the lowest CPM, whatever we think the best objective or the best metric is for us. If we don't really want to frivolously spend on multiple campaigns to find out what works, we really want to get to that split testing, and we really want to understand how to segment and target our optimal audiences. So before we create 4 or 5 different audiences right off the bat, maybe we just want to create 3 to start with, put a little bit of money behind, see what works, and then build out from there. If we have a new audience that we want to test against and we want to see if these work, so let's say spring's coming in, we have a new gardening product or a gardening service that we're trying to offer. Instead of creating a whole new campaign from scratch, maybe we just want to add in a new audience to our existing audiences to test that way as well. These are the easiest way to find the best performance or possible efficiencies going forward, instead of kind of just what I call chopping ourselves at the knees and kind of leaving all that results that we had before, and then just going to new audiences right away. We want to just add in that one specific factor and go from there. So with the split testing and understanding how to segment and target our optimal audiences, we can also test for the best optimizing mix for the cheapest cost possible. So instead of running for months and months and months and trying to figure out what is working and what's not, this way we can kind of dial it in. Okay, we want to test these two ad copies, give it 14 to 30 days, depending on the setting that we want. And we can actually specify how much money we want to put to that effort. And it will tell us how likely we are to find a result. And right away, it'll be able to set our expectations right off the bat, which I personally really like. So URL building. URL building is essentially, if we're using a different platform, let's say for the most part, I do highly recommend to use Google Analytics. Google Analytics gives us a good overview of what's happening on the site compared to where Facebook is much more specialized in telling us what's happening on the platform itself. I imagine that through all of our ads, we're going to be sending people to the website. So we want to make sure that Google Analytics knows what's happening with what ads, what campaigns, and what even platforms we're using. If we don't have any of these URLs built out in the proper fashion, what essentially happens is that you'll start seeing in Google Analytics, you'll start seeing a Facebook referral, an Instagram referral, a Twitter referral, whatever other social channels you're using, and you won't actually be able to go in and look into what campaigns working the best, what audiences working the best, what ad copies working the best. In theory, all we'll be able to see is who's landing on what landing page and how that landing page is doing, without actually seeing if it's organic, was it paid, was it a page-like campaign that we're running, or was it a traffic campaign that we're running. We don't get to see any of this, and our campaigns essentially lose all of the value that they potentially hold. So we really want to use these URL parameters to identify where our traffic is coming from, what specific ads have caused the user to click on it, and what one's kind of getting that more stickiness and the more engagement on the website compared to, maybe we get some ads that people are clicking on, they're leaving right away. The expectation's a little bit different. They're not seeing as much value from the ad to the landing page as maybe our ad number one. So we can integrate these URL parameters with Google Analytics to see to show which link people have been clicking on to get to our destination page, as well as get to see what kind of audiences have been working well for us, maybe what ones are staying the longest, what one has the highest conversion rate, so on and so forth. There's so much data that we can get from this, from putting these URLs in. So what is the way, sorry, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. So when we look into this screen, we can see that there is a few different fields here. And what we're essentially building right now is what we call UTM tracking. So UTM tracking essentially requires the URL, our campaign source, so Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and then our campaign medium. I do prefer to keep it more concise and neater. So usually what this is what we're bidding on. So CPC, a CPM, a CPA. I do tend to actually prefer to keep mine all as CPC, because it doesn't matter what I'm bidding on. I want to see everything in one view possible. So if I just type in Facebook/CPC as a source medium in Google Analytics, it gives me all my Facebook advertising in one kind of view, instead of going Facebook CPC, Facebook CPM, Facebook CPA, and getting 3 different views to tell me the whole story. From there, we have the campaign name. This should essentially be a copy and paste of what your campaign name is in Facebook. The campaign term, I do not like to go with what Google recommends. Google recommends this to be what your audience should be. I actually prefer to put it more in line with what all the other platforms have been doing and what they recommend. And what that is campaign term. It should actually be what your ad is. This should be your ad name. And then your campaign content, I actually prefer this to be what my audience is. The reason why is because if I pull in content, for instance, on Google Analytics, Google Ads default shows me campaign content is the ad group. Campaign term is the keyword, for instance. So I do like to kind of mix those two around to try and get it as aligned as possible with all the other platforms we're working with. You can see here down at the bottom, there is, You can see down at the bottom, there is this little helpful information. It kind of tells you the campaign source, what if it's required, if it's not, as well as it kind of tells you what this should be, as well as the examples. So UTM tracking and UTM tagging. I do highly recommend to spend time and time again with this. I cannot tell you how many times we see campaigns that are launched that we forget that the UTM tag is there. Yes, I've been running these for about 6 or 7 years now, and I still tend to forget UTM tags from time to time. Usually the best process is to go in the day after, see what the traffic's showing, and compare it to GA, Google Analytics, and Facebook. If Facebook is telling me I'm getting 20 landing page views, for instance, and GA is only showing me about 5, what that tells me is that only one of our ads is actually tagged and the other ads are not. So it kind of gives us that discrepancy in our ads. And again, if we're using Google Analytics to report on our performance, all of a sudden we're now undervaluing our campaigns. We want to make sure this UTM is in every campaign possible on as many platforms possible. So what is a UTM tag? A UTM tag actually stands for Urchin Tracking Module. I can promise you that no one will ask you what the long form version is unless you're taking a test, but usually everyone just replies or references them as UTM tags. So UTM tag is a simple piece of code that attaches to the back end of our URL. This allows us to track the source, the medium, and the campaign name from Facebook and send it to Google Analytics for reporting. Not only does it work for Google Analytics, but it'll work for any analytics platform that we might use as well. So it's very important to have these UTM tags in there. Clean data is invaluable. It is very, very important. So we're not applying these UTM tags to our Facebook advertising or to our advertising in general. It's really difficult to categorize our traffic as well as show the value of how much conversions we're getting on the site. So without those UTM tags, Facebook specific traffic, instead of showing up as Facebook CPC, it will show up as Facebook referral, Facebook referral. There's about 5 or 6 of them that happen. Usually the M. for instance, means mobile, Facebook.com means you're on desktop, so on and so forth. But without these UTM tags in place, like I said, our organic and our page has kind of become this one big black box. We can't see anything into it. So what do they look like? So when we start running our UTM tags, once we kind of plug in each each field that's required, and then we get that, you can start seeing at the bottom. I'll stop moving my mouse, so hopefully we can get the Google factor to move. We can start seeing the socialschool.ca/PR courses /. That is the end of our URL term. As soon as Google or our domain sees that question mark, all of a sudden that means that the domain is not going to look at what's happening. And this is where Facebook or other website or other tools can essentially pick up our UTM tags. We can see that the UTM source of Facebook, we can see that the medium CPC, we can see our campaigns there, so on and so forth. Anytime you see an ampersand, like the @ symbol, and then the UTM, that means a new field's coming on. That allows the analytics tool to be able to go, okay, this is a new field, let's track this. So you should always see the first one should be the question mark. And then from there on, it should be and UTM underscore campaign and underscore or UTM underscore content, so on and so forth. You don't have to also be limited to to only these fields. There is more fields that you want to add on. You can definitely add more to get more information to your campaigns. I do recommend the best practice is just to keep to the campaign, the content, and the term, as well as source medium. So that way, I find this gives us enough information. And if it's not giving me enough, then I'll just put more information into the campaign, for instance, into that field instead of creating a new field. So tips for UTM tags. I can't emphasize this enough. We want to ensure the consistency of our naming is as consistent as possible. And not only consistent as possible for 1 month, for 2 months, this should be consistent across the board for as many years as we can do. As soon as we start creating more year-over-year data, and for instance, we have some clients who have been having data issues, and as soon as they come over to our agency Bovia, they see that the data is cleaned up when they're with us, and that the data that they can extract from there is invaluable. They see this data and how well it works for them. Not only that, but as soon as a client becomes a client of ours, we keep that naming, the naming conventions and the consistency as best as possible. So that way we have about 5 to 6 years for some of the clients, for instance. 5 years of data, for instance, is unfathomable in the digital realm. Some of these businesses and some of your businesses, for instance, will only have about a year's worth of data or sometimes less. And that's not bad. That doesn't mean anything. We all have a stepping stone that we have to work with, but making sure that naming and that consistency is right off the bat just sets us up for success compared to running this and learning it for 2 years. And then after 2 years, we realize, oh, wait, we need to make sure our naming conventions are consistent to get all this data out of here. That means we just essentially lost 2 years worth of data. The number 2 tip is to keep it organized. You always want to keep a sheet. So for instance, I keep a sheet on my computer that has all the UTM tags that I have used. I always like to put in a date of when I did launch them. So, okay, I can see that this was launched and in market on, June 25th, 2019, so on and so forth. Maybe I created UTM tags, but I haven't actually put them into the campaign yet. I'll kind of leave that blank as a reminder to once these ones launch or once this campaign's approved, put this UTM in and get it going. From there, we really want to establish UTM parameters. We really want to make sure that all of our UTM parameters are out there and we're using all of them. So we want to make sure that if we have campaign, we have ad content, and we have term, keyword, we want to make sure we're always using all those parameter fields for all of our campaigns going forward. We don't want to all of a sudden start missing out on a few of them. Maybe 6 months down the road, we decide, oh, we don't really want to look at ad performance. Let's just take it out. Well, you might not know, maybe in that mindset, you don't want to look at ad performance, but maybe in a year or two, you want to be like, hey, we did run a campaign one time that had a nice image in it. Let's see what the performance was like. So if we have that parameter there from the start and we use all these parameters all the time, it will make us have invaluable data. I cannot tell you that enough. The value in the data is remarkable how much value there is here. And then the last bit, and we do have an Excel sheet for you that works with this, is I do highly recommend to track your UTMs with an Excel sheet. So again, it's kind of this one whole document. At an agency, for instance, I do change it up a bit, and each tab has its own client, for instance. If you're your own business or you have only one client, for instance, I would highly recommend just creating the one Excel sheet, so that way you have all the UTMs in one place. That way you keep track of, okay, did I do this platform? Or so, maybe we did Facebook, but we didn't do Instagram. It'll be able to tell us right away just by looking at the sheet, what we've UTM'd and what we haven't. Maybe we missed some, maybe we haven't. And this brings us right into our exercise 2. So for our exercise 2, if you go into the UTM tracking sheet, you'll be able to start seeing basically the date implemented, our campaign, the source, medium, content, term, and destination URL. We have made at the back, there's a formula that once we implement all of these fields that are required, you'll be able to see one long UTM tag at the very end. But essentially, all we have to do is copy and paste this into our URL field, and we're set to go. So with UTM tags and Facebook pixel data, we can now move into more detailed analysis. We can see who's reacting to our Facebook ads, go into Google Analytics, grab the source, Facebook CPC, go into the audience tab, see who is actually reacting with our Facebook ads versus maybe our overall website. If those two data sets, those audiences are different, let's say our Facebook ads are going after an 18 to 24-year-old audience, but our website is actually skewing towards more of the 44 to 54-year-olds, and they're the ones who actually buy. Maybe that's telling us that our Facebook targeting or our Facebook content is skewing younger when we should actually make it skew a little bit older. Again, this analysis and this audience insights is invaluable that we can get. So integrating Google Analytics. Integrating Google Analytics is actually pretty easy on our end. Is once we have all the UTM tags implemented and we have those running, we don't have to actually do anything from platform to platform perspective. All we have to do is once we start getting click volume and click traffic on our Facebook ads, we can go into the acquisition tab And we go down, you can either go into all campaigns or all traffic. It depends on what you want to look at. All campaigns will just be your paid campaigns. All traffic will also show you organic data as well. But once we go into the all campaigns, we can see, for instance, it automatically pulls in campaign first. And we see in campaign right away, Facebook _ Social School Edmonton, Facebook under Social School Lethbridge, so on and so forth. We got some Instagram coming on. If we want to see more data than this at a high level, so for instance, right away, we can see that Social School Edmonton is getting the best. It has the most people coming to our website. They're spending a decent amount of time, not as good as some others, but the conversion rate's much higher, and we're getting the most amount of conversions out of this campaign itself. Maybe we want to go under secondary dimension and pull in ad content or the keyword. This will allow us to see what audience is actually reacting and giving us more the most conversions, or the keyword will allow us to see what ads doing the best for us. Because we implemented the UTM tags on all of our Facebook ads, we can see that the data for we can now see the data for our ads. Oh. I'll just move me down for a bit. So we can actually start seeing the data that's specific to our ads as well, to our very specific ads. Modify myself there. Sorry, I get a bit distracted. Oops. So now we can look at what ads are promoting engagement, for instance, and what people are clicking on, what the users like, what they might be finding is the most useful. We can get this data. We can essentially recycle this to see what one works the best, and we can keep it going for next campaign. So for instance, we can see that the social school, we have a PR certificate that we ran. We got about 33 seconds on the site and about 2.5 pages per session. That's a lot higher than the average that we were getting. Sorry, I shouldn't say a lot higher. That is higher than the classic that we were seeing. So for instance, this tells me that the content we were running there and the landing page that we're using does tell me that there is something more sticky there compared to maybe somewhere else that we were testing. So benchmarking campaigns. So this is one of the hardest ones that I find for myself specifically. Once I start getting into reporting and I start getting into the numbers and the data to provide to a client, I do end up kind of seeing this bottom piece. Take out the actually no, the average can work. I tend to report something like this. So hey, our conversion rate for the month was 9.21%. Our CPC was 1.7. Our CTR was 0.9. And then the biggest question that I get back from the client, my account manager, anyone in the business is, well, how does that compare? You know, a 0.9% CTR, that could be really good. I just don't know, or it could be really bad and I have no idea at all. So it's really, really important to make sure that you're benchmarking your campaigns so that way we have something to compare to. So if we have nothing compared to, we really don't know how well these ads are performing. And especially if we haven't ran ads in the past, we don't have an average for our own campaigns yet. So this is a good way to just kind of get an overall benchmark for the campaigns. There's a few caveats here that I do want to highlight and kind of flag for you guys. And this happens with a lot of blogs. So WordStream, for instance, is a place that I personally pull all my industry averages from, whether it be Google ads, Facebook ads, so on and so forth. But the thing is, you have to look into specific ones. So the average conversion rate was about 9.2%. Well, we don't know what conversions people were optimizing to and what people were getting. What people were trying to get people to do. So, for instance, my gut feeling is that if this was a retail client, this should actually be at about like 1 to 3% conversion rate. If we're trying to get someone to sign up for a newsletter, for instance, it might be at the 5 to 7% conversion rate. And if we're trying to get someone to do something super simple, like visiting a contact page, then maybe it will be about a 9% conversion rate. At the end of the day, my gut feeling is telling me 9.21% for conversion rate is a little high. So I wouldn't be kind of demotivated if mine wasn't seeing as high performance as that. I do personally find these other two metrics are on point, and I do find that these ones are kind of the averages that I find here at Volvi as well. The average CPC across all industries was about 1.72, And then the average CTR is 0.90. That CPC, I find the CPC varies the most in industries. If we're going after someone who's in the education, in lawyer, like those kind of things, hospitals and things like that in the US, I do find that the CPC does go on the higher end. Whereas if we're trying to target and market someone for, travel and tourism and things like that, I do find it goes all the way down to like the 30 cents, so on and so forth. The CTR, I do find 0.90 is a good average across all industries. And that is one I do personally try and work towards if it is below it. So depending on your industries or the products or services that are offered, there is very different averages. And honestly, it changes industry to industry. There are some industries, for instance, that I've never worked on that I would have a hard time benchmarking. But there are some, for instance, that are out there that are super efficient and super, I'm losing the word, the word's on the tip of my tongue. It's basically like Facebook's where they should be. Travel and tourism, these fitness, the beauty, the apparel, these should all be on Facebook. Facebook's like their home. So retail, we find there's about a 1.59% CTR on average. Apparel, we see about 1.24. Beauty, we're seeing about 1.16. Fitness is about 1% right on the dot. And some of the lower ones that we see in the industries are about employment and job training. That's about 0.47. Finance and insurance, about 0.56. And these ones have some of the lowest. Excuse me. That again, it really depends. So employment and job training, for instance, it's really hard for us to target unemployed people on Facebook. Not everyone puts in their employment, and Facebook's taken away the ability to target by job titles and job industries. It's still there, but for instance, with marketing, all I can seem to get is marketing manager, where I'm a digital marketing specialist. I want to be able to target that job specifically for employment. I'm not able to. So I think that's where we get a lower CTR. For CPC, it should be no surprise that financial services are getting the highest CPC. This is about a 3.77 that we're seeing, where apparel is getting about a 45-cent cost per click. Again, apparel, super easy. It basically lives on Facebook. That's a platform where it feels at home. 0.45 cost per click feels perfect for me. And getting down to it, this is a great page that I like to keep. Personally, now I've been running ads for a long time. All of these have been ingrained in my head, but you will be surprised at how many people ask me these questions, especially coming from clients, new clients that have been hired from the businesses come up, and especially if they're from more of a traditional background, they're just getting into digital, they'll be asking these questions. What's frequency? What's the impressions? What's CTR? And then this is just a really good way for us to be able to give them kind of a cheat sheet and be able to let them know these right away. And then last but not least, I do highly recommend joining the Facebook for Business. This kind of platform that you can go into. Some of my favorites that I like to go into are the Insights tab as well as Learn tab. So the Insight tab will allow us to look into studies or kind of data that Facebook's generated that is relevant to what we're trying to target. So for instance, in the last few years, the biggest ones I've grabbed out of the Insights tab is all of our businesses and all of our clients asking us how to target millennials. Where are the millennials? What are they doing? What do they like? How do we get to these people? Well, Facebook in their insights created this good study on basically what millennials are doing, what devices they're on, what brands they found were cool essentially, and why they're finding them cool. Was it because they're authentic? Was it because they had great content? Is the video that people are playing with? So on and so forth. In the last year, we've actually seen it switch. Millennials kind of old audience now. No one really cares about the millennials as much. Now it's all about those Gen Zs. We want to get after those younger people. We just want to get after those new 18-year-olds, essentially. The new audience that can finally buy our products, open a bank account with us, so on and so forth. We want to capitalize on these people where they are at. And I find Facebook gets really good data and insights for us. as well as the Learn section. The Learn section has a lot of information around new products, new features that they have, and essentially how to get started with them. So for instance, Facebook is always updating and it is always implementing new products and new features. For instance, I just got off a call with the Facebook rep yesterday, and he was telling us how many new betas and new features were coming out just in the next 6 months alone. I believe there is at least 5 new betas that are coming out to agencies. So this is where I highly recommend to check from time to time to see in the Learn, see if there's any new products or new features coming out that we can take a hold of. The last tip I have for you guys is that when these new features come out, I do highly recommend to capitalize and test these new features as soon as possible. A good example over the last year has been has been Instagram and Facebook stories. These things have been blowing up in the world. When we look at our personal use and our personal, our friends and family, for instance, they're all using stories more than they're using the feed now. This was the same thing that happened with advertisers. Advertisers saw this new product, how people are engaging with it. If we're the first ones in, we have a lot less competition to compete with compared to everyone advertising on the feed, as well as since it's a new platform or a new placement, a new product, Facebook tends to give us the leeway. They put the cost down cheaper than a typical feed. So that way we have an incentive to go over and test these new features out. As well as since it's a new feature, we'll see that Facebook and the algorithm itself will actually start serving us and will become more of our best friend compared to just single image feed ads. This happens with all products out there. The biggest one I can think of right off the bat was carousel ads. When carousel ads came out, for instance, Facebook feed ads were seeing about $1 cost per click. Carousels we were seeing for the first 6 months, about 13-cent cost per click on average. Yes, ridiculously cheap. And that was because Facebook was favoring them more. It was serving them out more at a very reduced cost, as well as not many people were leveraging the carousels. So we took advantage and we basically made as many carousels as we could for our clients to get that performance out of it. Again, now that more people have gone on carousels are about 4 years old now. It's kind of diluted itself. So we do find that, we kind of switch back to the single feed once those costs kind of equaled out. But for the first 6 months, we were seeing great value and great results. So with that being said, we're done the module 3 for the Facebook course. So up next is the digital marketing course number 5, Insights and Optimization. Hope you had a good day. See ya.